Section 1. Not everyone will understand your assignment. When God places something in your heart, it may not make sense to everyone around you. Not everyone will see what you see. Not everyone will feel what you feel. Not everyone will understand what God is asking of you. Some will question it. They will ask why. Why this direction? Why this change? Why this path? Some will ignore it. They will dismiss it quietly, assume it will pass, assume you will change your mind. And some will oppose it. They will criticize it, challenge it, mock it, not always loudly, sometimes subtly, sometimes through doubt, sometimes through sarcasm. But opposition often appears when purpose becomes visible. Not because you are wrong, but because purpose often attracts resistance. Light exposes things that darkness prefers hidden. Movement challenges people who are comfortable staying still. And obedience to God sometimes unsettles those who prefer familiar patterns. Walking in alignment with God does not always bring applause. It does not always bring support. It does not always bring understanding. Sometimes it brings opposition. Joseph shared his dream, and his brothers hated him. David was anointed king and immediately faced opposition. Nehemiah began rebuilding the wall, and mockery followed. Jesus himself walked in perfect obedience and still faced resistance. Purpose does not eliminate criticism. Sometimes it increases it. Because when you begin to move in the direction God called you, it disrupts expectations. It exposes insecurity. It reveals differences in conviction. But misunderstanding does not cancel calling. Criticism does not cancel purpose. And opposition does not cancel obedience. Not everyone is assigned to understand your assignment. Some are meant to observe. Some are meant to question. Some are meant to resist. But your responsibility is not universal approval. Your responsibility is faithful obedience. Tonight, release the need for everyone to understand. Release the pressure to explain every step. Release the disappointment when support is absent. God did not call the crowd. He called you. And when you walk in alignment with Him, you may not always receive applause, but you will receive purpose. So breathe slowly. Stand steady. Not everyone will understand your assignment, but the one who gave it to you does. And that is enough. Section 2. Nehemiah faced mockery. When Nehemiah began rebuilding the walls of Jerusalem, people did not celebrate the work. They did not applaud the effort. They did not encourage the vision. They mocked it. What are these feeble Jews doing? Nehemiah 4:2. The moment the rebuilding started, ridicule appeared. They questioned the strength of the workers. They mocked the possibility of success. They laughed at the idea that broken walls could rise again. They said, "What are they building? Even if a fox climbs on it, the wall will fall down." In other words, they tried to make the vision look foolish. They ridiculed the effort. They doubted the vision. They laughed at the possibility of restoration. But notice something important. The mockery did not begin when the walls were destroyed. It began when the rebuilding started. No one mocked the ruins. No one criticized the broken stones. No one attacked the empty city. But the moment someone began rebuilding, opposition appeared. Why? Because progress provokes resistance. Broken things are rarely threatened, but restored things are powerful. The enemy often attacks before the work is finished, not after victory, not after completion, but during the process, during the rebuilding, during the early stages when everything still looks fragile. The mockery was meant to do one thing: discourage the builders. If they could not stop the work physically, they would try to stop it emotionally, through doubt, through ridicule, through embarrassment. But Nehemiah did not argue. He did not stop building. He prayed, and he continued the work. The criticism did not cancel the calling. The laughter did not stop the progress. The mockery did not destroy the vision. They kept building, stone by stone, layer by layer, until the walls stood again. And sometimes, when you begin rebuilding your life, your habits, your faith, your purpose, people may respond the same way. They may mock the effort, they may doubt the change, they may question the possibility. But remember this: no one mocks ruins. Mockery often appears when restoration begins. It is not proof that the vision is wrong. It may be proof that the rebuilding has started. So keep building, quietly, faithfully, steadily. Let people talk, let people question, let people laugh. Your responsibility is not to win every argument. Your responsibility is to continue the work. Because when God calls you to rebuild something, mockery does not stop the assignment. And in time, what they laughed at will stand strong. Rest in that. Then keep building. Section 3. Even a fox could break it. Tobiah mocked them, saying, "If even a fox climbed up on it, he would break down their wall of stones." Nehemiah 4:3. It was sarcasm, dismissive, belittling. The message was clear. Your work is weak. Your effort is pointless. Your vision will fail. In other words, why even try? They were not simply criticizing construction. They were attacking confidence. They were trying to plant doubt. Because mockery is rarely about the wall. It is about the builder. Ridicule is designed to weaken resolve, to make you question yourself, to make you reconsider the vision, to make you second-guess what God told you. When people laugh at something, the goal is often psychological. If they can embarrass you, they hope you will stop. If they can make you feel foolish, they hope you will abandon the assignment. Mockery tries to shrink courage. It tries to make obedience feel ridiculous. It tries to convince you that you are naive for believing what God placed in your heart. But ridicule does not cancel calling. Laughter does not cancel obedience. And criticism does not cancel purpose. The wall Nehemiah was building looked fragile in the early stages. Scattered stones, uneven progress, slow construction. From the outside, it looked unimpressive. But the builders knew what they were creating, and God knew what the wall would become. Sometimes your progress will look small to observers. Sometimes your obedience will look insignificant to critics. Sometimes your rebuilding will look fragile to outsiders. But what they see halfway is not the finished structure. They are judging an unfinished wall. They are mocking an incomplete process. But God does not measure what is unfinished. He measures what is faithful. The fox comment was meant to discourage the builders, but the wall still rose, stone by stone, section by section. Because ridicule has no power over people who keep building. And sometimes, as you walk in alignment with God, people will say similar things. That won't work. That's unrealistic. You're wasting your time. Why are you doing this? But remember this: people often mock what they do not understand, and they often criticize what they cannot see clearly yet. Your job is not to convince every voice around you. Your job is to continue building, because mockery cannot dismantle what God instructed you to construct. So breathe slowly. Let the laughter pass. Let the criticism fade. Let the doubt fall away. Ridicule does not cancel calling, and what God started through you, He is capable of finishing. Keep building. Section 4. Criticism often appears when progress begins. Notice something important in the story of Nehemiah. Pay attention to when the opposition came. Not before Nehemiah started, not when the walls were still ruins, not when the city was broken, not when everything looked hopeless. No one criticized the destruction. No one mocked the rubble. No one opposed the ruins. But the moment rebuilding began, opposition appeared. Movement attracts resistance. The moment progress begins, criticism often follows. Because broken things rarely threaten anyone, but restored things do. When the walls were collapsed, everyone was comfortable. But when the stones started rising again, suddenly people had opinions. Suddenly people had criticism. Suddenly people had mockery. The same thing often happens in our lives. When you begin aligning your life with God, something shifts. When you start changing habits, letting go of things that once controlled you, walking away from patterns that once defined you, when you begin pursuing purpose, taking steps of obedience, listening to God's direction, choosing integrity over convenience, when you start growing spiritually, praying more intentionally, studying scripture, strengthening your discipline, guarding your heart, standing firm in conviction, something changes. And sometimes people become uncomfortable. Not because you attacked them, not because you judged them, not because you tried to control them, but because your progress exposes their stagnation. Your discipline highlights their compromise. Your growth reveals their resistance to change. And that discomfort sometimes turns into criticism. Not everyone celebrates transformation. Not everyone understands conviction. Not everyone supports obedience. But criticism during progress is not unusual. It is often predictable, because light naturally exposes darkness, and growth naturally disrupts comfort. But do not misinterpret opposition as failure. Sometimes it is confirmation that movement has begun. No one criticizes a parked car, but the moment you start driving, people begin to notice. People begin to react. People begin to comment. Your progress will not always be applauded, but that does not make it wrong. Your assignment was never dependent on universal approval. It was dependent on faithful obedience. So if criticism appears as you begin to rebuild, do not panic. Do not retreat. Do not assume you misunderstood God. Sometimes opposition simply means the work has started. The stones are rising. The wall is forming. And progress has become visible. So breathe slowly. Stay focused. Let the noise remain background. And continue aligning your life with what God called you to build. Because criticism may follow progress, but progress still continues. Section 5. Nehemiah did not argue. Nehemiah heard the criticism. He heard the mockery. He heard the laughter. The voices questioning the vision, the voices doubting the progress, the voices trying to discourage the builders. But Nehemiah did not stop to debate. He did not pause the work to argue with every critic. He did not spend his energy trying to prove them wrong. He prayed, "Hear us, O our God, for we are despised." Nehemiah 4:4. Instead of reacting to critics, he returned to God. He did not give the opposition his attention, he gave God his attention. This is an important lesson. Not every voice deserves your response. Not every opinion deserves your explanation. Not every criticism deserves your time. Some voices are distractions, some arguments are traps. If Nehemiah had stopped the rebuilding to argue with every mocker, the wall would never have been finished. The enemy often uses noise to slow progress, not always through force, sometimes through distraction, through debate, through emotional reaction, through the urge to defend yourself constantly. But purpose requires focus. When you are building something with God, your energy must remain directed toward the assignment, not toward every critic, not toward every misunderstanding, not toward every opinion. If you stop to answer every voice, you will never finish the work. Nehemiah chose prayer over argument, focus over distraction, obedience over explanation. He trusted that God did not need him to win every debate. God needed him to keep building. And sometimes, as you walk in alignment with God, people will question you. They will challenge your decisions. They will criticize your direction. They will misunderstand your motives. But your assignment is not to convince everyone. Your assignment is to remain faithful. Not every voice deserves your attention. Not every critic deserves your response. Some conversations are simply noise, and noise loses power when you refuse to stop working. So, when criticism rises, do what Nehemiah did. Pray, refocus, return your attention to what God asked you to build. Because purpose requires focus, and the people who finish the work are the ones who refuse to stop building every time someone speaks. So breathe slowly, let the noise pass, lift your eyes back to God, and keep building. Section 6. They built while under pressure. The Israelites continued building. They did not stop. They did not retreat. They did not abandon the work because opposition appeared. They kept building. Despite the insults, despite the threats, despite the doubt. Voices around them were mocking. Some were ridiculing the vision. Others were threatening to stop the progress entirely. Yet the builders did not freeze. They did not allow criticism to become their focus. They continued the work, stone by stone, section by section. Scripture says, "So we built the wall, for the people had a mind to work." Nehemiah 4:6. Notice the reason. Not because the work was easy, not because everyone supported them, not because the opposition disappeared. They built the wall because they had a mind to work. In other words, their determination was stronger than the criticism. Their focus was stronger than the noise. Their commitment was stronger than the distraction. Opposition did not disappear, but it did not control them. Sometimes people wait for a perfect environment to build. No criticism, no resistance, no pressure. But purpose is often built in imperfect conditions, under pressure, under scrutiny, under misunderstanding. The builders in Nehemiah's time did not wait for silence. They built through the noise. And sometimes walking in alignment with God requires the same focus. You may feel pressure, you may hear criticism, you may notice resistance rising the moment you start making progress. But pressure does not have to stop the work. Distraction only wins when focus disappears. Focus defeats distraction. When your eyes remain on the assignment, the noise loses influence. When your attention remains on obedience, the criticism fades into background. When your energy stays on what God asked you to build, progress continues. The wall did not rise in comfort. It rose in determination. It rose through perseverance. It rose through people who refused to let opposition steal their focus. And the same principle applies today. When you align your life with God, when you rebuild what was broken, when you pursue what He placed in your heart, there may be pressure. But pressure does not cancel purpose. So keep building, keep showing up, keep moving forward, not because the noise is gone, but because your focus is stronger than the noise. So breathe slowly, return your attention to the assignment, and keep building. Focus defeats distraction. Section 7. Opposition can be confirmation. Sometimes resistance is not a warning. It is not a signal that you are off track. It is not evidence that you misunderstood God. Sometimes resistance is confirmation. Confirmation that the work matters. Confirmation that your movement has impact. Confirmation that something meaningful is happening. Because the enemy rarely attacks what has no influence. He rarely invests energy into something that will accomplish nothing. He rarely opposes what poses no threat. But when progress begins, when obedience becomes consistent, when alignment with God becomes visible, resistance often increases, not because you are wrong, but because something significant is being built. Think about the walls in Nehemiah's time. The ruins were ignored. No one organized opposition while the city was broken. But the moment rebuilding started, mockery appeared. Threats followed. Resistance increased. Why? Because restoration changes things. Restoration brings strength. Restoration brings protection. Restoration brings influence. The enemy did not fear ruins. He feared rebuilt walls. And sometimes the same pattern appears in our lives. When you begin to change, when your habits begin to shift, when your faith begins to deepen, when your discipline begins to grow, opposition can rise. People may criticize, voices may question, pressure may increase. Not every challenge means you are moving incorrectly. Sometimes it means you are moving effectively. If your growth disturbs darkness, you are moving in the right direction. Light does not quietly coexist with darkness. It exposes it, it confronts it, it disrupts it. And disruption often attracts resistance. But resistance does not mean retreat. Resistance often means progress. It means something is changing. It means something is advancing. It means something is being restored. Do not interpret every obstacle as a sign to stop. Sometimes obstacles appear because you started. Sometimes opposition exists because your obedience matters. Tonight, if you feel resistance rising, do not assume failure. Look again. It may be confirmation. Confirmation that your growth has impact. Confirmation that your alignment with God is creating movement. Confirmation that the work matters. So breathe slowly. Do not let opposition intimidate you. Let it remind you that what you are building has significance. Keep walking, keep growing, keep building. Because sometimes resistance is simply proof that the work is worth doing. Section 8. Stay aligned with what God put in your heart. God placed that conviction in you, not randomly, not accidentally, deliberately. That calling, that direction, that inner sense that something in your life needed to change, that desire to grow, that pull towards something better, something healthier, something more aligned with who God created you to be. That conviction did not come from pressure, it came from purpose. And when God plants something in a person's heart, it often begins quietly. Not everyone hears it, not everyone understands it, not everyone feels it the way you do, which is why not everyone will support it. Do not abandon it because others misunderstand it. Misunderstanding does not mean it is wrong. Lack of support does not mean it is invalid. Criticism does not mean it is misguided. Not everyone is meant to understand your assignment. Some people are observers. They watch from a distance. They notice the changes, but they never step into the work. Some people are critics. They question the decisions. They challenge the direction. They comment on the process. But they are not carrying the assignment. They are not responsible for the obedience. God did not give the vision to the crowd. He gave it to you. Nehemiah did not receive the calling to rebuild the wall because everyone agreed. He received it because God placed it in his heart. And when God places conviction in a person's heart, clarity often comes before universal approval. You may see something others cannot see yet. You may feel urgency others do not feel. You may feel compelled to change directions while others remain comfortable. That does not make you wrong. It means you are responding to something deeper. Alignment with God often requires courage. The courage to stay steady even when others question. The courage to continue moving even when support is quiet. The courage to trust God's voice more than public opinion. Your responsibility is not to gain agreement from everyone. Your responsibility is to remain faithful to what God placed in your heart. Tonight, return your attention to that conviction, that quiet sense that God is leading you somewhere. Do not let criticism erase it. Do not let misunderstanding silence it. Do not let pressure distort it. God is the one who gave the vision, and the one who gave the vision is also the one who will guide the process. So breathe slowly. Let the noise fade. Refocus on the assignment. Stay aligned with what God placed in your heart and keep building what He called you to build. Section 9. Reflection. What voices are you listening to? Now, pause for a moment. Let this become personal. Every person walking in purpose faces voices, some helpful, some distracting, some discouraging, some loud, some subtle. And over time, the voices we listen to shape the direction we walk. So ask yourself honestly, have I been discouraged by criticism? Have certain words stayed in my mind longer than they should? Comments, opinions, doubts spoken by others. Have I allowed someone's mockery to weaken my confidence? Have I replayed their words over and over, letting their skepticism become louder than the conviction God placed in my heart? Sometimes criticism does not stop us immediately. Instead, it slowly erodes confidence. It plants small seeds of doubt. Questions begin to appear. Maybe they're right. Maybe this won't work. Maybe I misunderstood. And before long, the crowd's voice becomes louder than God's direction. But remember something important. God's voice matters more than the crowd's opinion. Public opinion changes constantly. One day people applaud. Another day they criticize. One moment they support. Another moment they doubt. But God's voice remains steady. God's direction does not fluctuate based on public approval. Think about Nehemiah. The wall was not rebuilt because everyone believed in the vision. In fact, many people mocked it. Many doubted it. Many questioned it. But the wall still rose. Why? Because Nehemiah believed what God placed in his heart. His confidence did not come from the crowd. It came from conviction. And conviction is stronger than opinion. Tonight, consider the voices you have been listening to. Which ones bring clarity? Which ones bring doubt? Which ones strengthen your faith? Which ones weaken your focus? You cannot silence every voice, but you can choose which ones guide you. Let God's voice be the loudest one. Let His truth steady your heart. Let His direction guide your steps. The crowd may speak, critics may comment, opinions may circulate, but purpose is built by people who follow conviction more than commentary. So breathe slowly. Release the weight of other people's opinions. Lift your focus back to God. And remember, the wall was rebuilt not because everyone believed in it, but because Nehemiah did. Rest in that. Then keep building. Section 10. Closing Prayer. Father, give us courage to continue the work you placed in our hearts. Not courage that comes from confidence in ourselves, but courage that comes from trusting you. When voices mock us, strengthen our focus. When criticism rises, steady our minds. Do not let discouragement take root in our hearts. Do not let doubt drown out your direction. When people misunderstand us, remind us who called us. Remind us that the assignment did not begin with the crowd. It began with you. Protect us from discouragement. Protect us from distraction. Guard our hearts from the weight of other people's opinions. Guard our minds from the temptation to stop building. Help us build faithfully, even when progress feels slow. Help us remain steady, even when others question the vision. Help us stay obedient, even when applause is absent. Strengthen our resolve to keep doing what you asked us to do. Just like Nehemiah, help us keep building, stone by stone, step by step, day by day. Not because everyone believes in it, but because you placed it in our hearts. And as we move forward, remind us of this truth. Opposition cannot stop what you have ordained. Mockery cannot destroy what you have called into existence. Criticism cannot cancel what you have assigned. So we release the noise. We release the pressure to explain ourselves to everyone. We release the fear of being misunderstood. And we place our focus back on you. Strengthen our hands, steady our hearts, and give us the determination to finish what you started in us. In Jesus' name, Amen. Numbers 23:23, MSG. No magic spells can bind Jacob. No incantations can hold back Israel. People will look at Jacob and Israel and say, "What a great thing has God done." Deuteronomy 8:18. Remember the Lord your God. He is the one who gives you power to be successful in order to fulfill the covenant he confirmed to your ancestors with an oath. Matthew 5:11-12. God blesses you when people mock you and persecute you and lie about you and say all sorts of evil things against you because you are my followers. Be happy about it. Be very glad, for a great reward awaits you in heaven. And remember, the ancient prophets were persecuted in the same way. Luke 6:22-23. What blessings await you when people hate you and exclude you and mock you and curse you as evil because you follow the Son of Man? When that happens, be happy. Yes, leap for joy, for a great reward awaits you in heaven. And remember, their ancestors treated the ancient prophets that same way.